Hello everyone and welcome to a very complicated episode in the world of Mark 1 focuses. Now, as I said in the last time I came to a sort of technical information video regarding Mark 1 colours, I did say I would do something on interior seat trim, etc., which would be the next link in the chain. And quite frankly, I thought that when I was editing the colour episode, it would be an editorial nightmare because there was a lot of things to cover and there's a lot of prep work that needs to be done. And I've got to be honest with you, I like to do my videos relatively off script and off the cuff, which is why they drag on probably for such a long time. This episode is scripted. I've tried to keep to an absolute script here, and the reason being is because if I don't stick to a script, you will not understand some of the context of this video. Now, I've tried to make this as simple as possible for most people to understand. Now, remember, just like the colours, this is UK cars only. However, a lot of these colours and interior trim combinations would have been used in Europe and in America, but not in the same manner, obviously, because there are different specifications, etc., etc. So a lot of it does not apply, but some of it will. And I'm sure some of it will be of interest because if any of you have studied any of these brochures, you will kind of see how complex it technically is. So I've studied from the September 98 all the way to end of production through those brochures, the interior trim combinations. So we're going to talk about two things, and this episode is split into two parts. We're going to talk about the seat facings, okay, and what order they went in and what specs. Once we've done that, we're then going to come to the interior trim colours because we're going to involve the seat patterns with the interior trim because they're all interlinked. But I can't really do it in one go without you being confused. And believe you me, it was confusing for me to even write a script on it. I now understand it because I kind of have to, being the one who's doing the video, but to make other people understand is a different context. So let's start with seat trim combinations, and let's start with the first couple of specs in September 1998. Okay, so in September 1998, you would have had obviously 4 specs: CLs, LXs, ZTECs, Ghias. They all have their individual seat patterns. Okay, this is the trim, the pattern on the actual seat facings that you sit on. The side bolsters would have some sort of matching material that might be related to the material on the seat facings or not, or there'd just be some generic tweed material generically. I'm not going to focus on the side trimmings because it would get ever so complicated. Some of them are referring to as Kent side facings and all sorts, but to make it simple, we're going to concentrate on the stuff that people want to know about, and that's the seat facings themselves. So it's the material on the seat covers. And from launch, your CLs and LXs would have got this, which is the finesse seat trim. Yes, that is a very, very nice seat trim, I will say. And you know what, ironically, this is the first seat trim we're going to start off with. And I'm going to tell you, I have sat on every single seat facing available on a Mark 1. And above and beyond, this is the best. It is the most comfiest seat material of the lot. And I cannot explain to you why it was fitted to a CL and LX. Because as I'm going to explain in a second, the Ghia seat facings are not as nice. They look quite dated. Whereas the one thing, ironically, that the Mark 1 Focus inherited from the Escort, probably the only things that are entirely relatable between the two cars, is the finesse seat trim. This seat trim was carried straight over from the Escort. It is slap bang mid-late 90s. And wow, it goes well. It's got that nice purpley colour to it. And it is a nice velvety suede feel to it. And when you sit on it, I don't know why, but it just has that little bit of give to it. And it is comfy. It really is. And quite frankly, it's the number one. So it's the first one on this bill for this episode, and it's the best. It simply is. There's nothing that comes close to it. Possibly Bussac, but we'll go into that in a second. But that's what you would have got on every single CL and LX up to September 2000. Okay. Now for the CL in September 2000, that material changed to the match material, which we can see here. This is the material that Nick has got in his CL. Okay, now this material lasted around 2003, and it is a nice crotch hatch style in a sort of blue and black, and it cleans up rather well. It took me and Nick a little bit of time to scrubbing to get these seats looking a lot better. They do fade, unfortunately. It seems to be constructed of some sort of hard-wearing cotton braid material, which is hard-wearing, but it's very rough to feel. It feels like something that definitely should be on a poverty spec. But would you believe that that is the basis for the material that was put on pre-facelift Ghia cloth seats? Would you believe it? Yes. This is why my argument for the finesse seats being the comfiest definitely stand true. And this material stayed for quite a while until 2003. And then in 2003, all the way to the end of production, they changed it again just for the CL, calling this the intro. Now, excuse the image here, but basically we've got some squares with a circle inside. That's all it is. And it is constructed of quite a cheap material, a different sort of cotton braid to the cotton braided material that the match trim had. But it was more of a recycled jeans exercise, which is very similar to what you would get on the famous Harlequin seats on a Zetec. Again, these remained in production until the end as far as the UK is concerned. It looks okay. I prefer that over the match trim, but quite frankly, the best material ever put on a CL was the finesse seats. And that's quite ironic because you would expect poverty spec to be really awful. It just goes to show how well spec'd some of the low poverty spec Mark 1s were, the CL and the LX being the cheapest, and yet interior seat wise they were superb. And then on the LX, as we started, we had the finesse trim all the way. Believe it or not, that remained on the LX all the way to the facelift of October 2001. So if you have a pre-facelift LX, you will have the finesse trim. You got no other seat facing at all on your seats. And then in the facelift October 2001, they changed it to the Mate trim. The Mate trim stayed in production for every facelift LX. So nice and simple for LX. The Mate trim is, it's okay. I mean, it's quite cheap in its construction. It was more, again, like the intro, a recycled jeans exercise. Not amazing, but you know, it did an okay job. So there's nothing really more to be said than that, to be honest with you. So if we leave the LX and go to the Zetec, now the Zetec is roughly around the same sort of simplicity from launch for all. Well, the majority, actually, no, all pre-facelifts, excuse me, Zetecs gained the Swift trim, which is this. I quite like that, to be honest. Yeah, it's a simple enough pattern and construction. Again, I believe that this is from recycled jeans. Yeah, it sort of denoted a little bit more of a sporty factor, I suppose. It kind of looks like that because you've got this kind of diamond-shaped pattern going on. If you look at the shapes, they're diamond shapes. with a bit of, mostly black, so very much black and a bit more grey diamond shapes, and it's a bit more sporty. I can't think of anything else to say, to be honest with you, which is why I'm rambling. But they are kind of made from recycled jeans as a material. It's very elasticated, I'll put it that way. I do know they're quite elasticated, but they tend to fade quite a bit if they're not cleaned. You really do need to scrub those sort of seat facings to actually get them to look their best, put it that way. And I think sun damage does also have its effect. And that was replaced for the facelift, and all Zetec's after the facelift gained the famous Harlequin seats. They look amazing. These particular seats are straight out of Alex's car in the group, and Alex has cleaned these seats to absolute perfection using a scrubbing brush and elbow grease, and that's exactly how they would have looked brand new. They have this sort of triangular shape to them, which actually looks like the side repeater of a Mark 1 on the front wing, which I find is actually quite a subtle, nice pattern development there. And it actually looks rather mid-spec sporty wise. It actually looks much nicer than the Swift trim. So yeah, again, same sort of elasticated jean construction, but not particularly hard wearing. I've known quite a few to get scuffed and start looking frilly at this old age, but if you look after them, there should be no issues really whatsoever. The other thing with the Zetec is the option on the facelift of perforated leather. Now, this wasn't immediately available. I would say somewhere around 2002, they offered the perforated leather. Now, this leather is, as I say, perforated at the bottom, so you won't get as sweaty, put it that way. There is some breathing going on, so the seat covers are much better. It was not initially available from launch of the facelift Zetec's, but it was available at some point during 2002. I'm not sure at what point, but nevertheless, it was a little bit before the brochure dictated. Well, the brochure September 2002 told me that it was an option, but it was available before that. I do know that. So some of these dates are just a little bit off, but mostly correct. And the perforated leather it looks really nice on a Zetec, as I all know, with those big nice bolsters, nice and black, always fitted with midnight black as an interior colour. I will come on to that at some point. Now the Ghia from launch would have basically had up until the facelift, I'm just checking my notes there, it would have had this, which is the Venice trim. Okay, so there were two options with a Ghia. From the factory, from September 1998, you could have the cloth seat, the material seat, which was the Venice, which is the material that basically is exactly the same as the match, which the CL's got later on. It is a cotton braided, hard wearing material, which isn't particularly soft. It's nowhere near as soft or as supple or as nice to touch as the finesse seat trims, which is confusing. You'd think that that would be on the CO and LXs and the finesse would be on the Ghia specification, but oh no, you got this. It's nice in appearance, but as soon as you sit on it or touch it, it isn't quite as inviting. So it doesn't, you can't really see the pattern in the seats in this particular picture, and I think the colour definitely disguises that a little bit. But the Venice was the seat pattern. Medium parchment was quite common, but you could get it in midnight black as well. Now obviously in this picture it's a parchment, medium parchment, which is the beige colour on pre-facelifts and just after. I will go into that in a little later, but the pattern is very much disguised by the colour, but the material, I'm telling you, is exactly the same as what you'd have got on the match trim on later CLs. Unbelievable. And it remained that way until the Facelift. And obviously, as an alternative, a much better alternative, you could get the leather option, which was this. Now, the leather seats on pre-facelifts, they are a different construction. They're a different type. We call it the ruched style. It's basically where you've got more creases, and there seems to be a sort of element of those creases are deliberate. That's how the car came out the factory. And it very much reminds me of the seats you get in a Ford Scorpio. They were exactly the same manufacturer of leather. I'm not sure what manufacturer they were using, but it's definitely a softer leather. The perforated leather that you get on facelifts isn't as soft. It's more harder, that perforated leather. It's much more harder. There's no creases. A bit more uncompromising and more uncomfortable. Sadly, I would definitely say that most Mark 1 seats are in a sort of 3 out of 5 in terms of comfort at best. And these seat coverings are very attractive, and they are definitely nice to touch as a leather material, and definitely the style to go for. And you'd have got these on any pre-facelift Ghia with that option. Now, on the facelift Ghias, you'd have got basically this. Bussac. Yes. Now, on every facelift Ghia, Bussac and perforated leather were the two options right until the very end. Bussac is a very, very nice looking material. I think it is the second best material that they put on the seat facings, just behind the Finesse. I think the Finesse just about beats it in terms of softness. It is a very nice pronounced material, and quite frankly, it's quite desirable to go for. It's very inviting. It's nice and thick and padded, and it just gives that impression of it being a Ghia. It's not something that the Venice trim that came before it ever achieved, in my opinion. So a well redesigned material, and the holes again are to just allow the material to breathe, because your bum is sitting on that chair, that seat facing for quite a while, and you may sweat, and the heat goes through your clothes on a hot summer's day. It's exactly the same design as what they put on the perforated leather, which is here. And again, you could get that in a choice of a couple of colours, but perforated leather was the other option. Now, those are the 4 main specs. We're going to have to deal with the other special limited editions. Now, most special limited editions got leather seats, the perforated leather seats that you would find on a facelifted Zec, by the way. Okay, most of them will have them. Okay, the Millennium got the ruched leather from a Ghia, basically a Ghia specification. There was a few others, but basically the main one, the first one, was the Zec collection. Now, this had a completely unique seat pattern, and it's called Amandine. Now, Amandine is a very strange name. We've got these sort of blue diamonds. Again, it looks like the Swift, and I believe it is just almost a carbon copy of the Swift, except we've got blue going on, which is quite nice, quite unique actually. So we've got a black background and the blue tinting. It's very sporty, and it's just literally a slightly different version of Swift. And strangely enough, Amandine has a very strange meaning in Latin, which means much loved. Well, you could certainly say that for the Zec collection these days. I don't think it used to be. People used to love the bumpers, but not the rest of the car. And then we have editions like the Flight with its Salomon trim. Yes, Salomon, which means, it's a French word meaning peace. Okay, interesting one. But it's a nice trim. And it's got this very similar vibe to the intro trim that you'd find on later CLs. But it's a sort of half moon sort of appearance. Actually, it does look rather French actually, if you think they're a pair of lips. Again, made from recycled jeans. And that would have been your trim on the Flight Edition. On the edge, you got the Oriya, which is this. It's just like a load of square dots, but different sizes. It's like it sort of goes a bit small and then it increases in size. I'm not quite sure what sort of optical illusion that was meant to pose. But again, Aria has a very weird meaning honourable in Latin. That's just some of these names. I had to look this up because some of these names are very, it's out of context, put it that way. But as I say, very nice seats. These are on a Friends Edge, and they do tend to fade as well. Again, same recycled jean sort of material, really. Again, you know, fading is a problem, and probably getting a scrubbing brush and giving them a clean does make a massive amount of difference. And obviously on the ST170, we've got this partial blue leather going on. Which is a very nice combination. It's sort of blue waffle. Now, if you look at the actual blue segment, it is a waffle. It's actually got some white in it with blue strands in it. But you only notice that when you look closely. The half leather going on is absolutely pitch black leather that you would associate with an ST170. ST170 interior colours are quite unique, actually. Which I'll go into in a second. But as an option, if you had enough money, you could have just gone for these. The Recaro embossed leather options, ST170, yeah. Very nice indeed. Recaro would have been written on the back, the sort of back piece that you see in the middle, with lots of lumbar support. Really nice, very unique, and very common to see them in a lot of Mark 1s that would never have had them. I consider it myself. So there you go. That would have been a special offering. And obviously on the RS, we have the Sparco seats, which look completely out of place in a Mark 1, if I'm vague to be honest with you. But this was meant for, this is a rally car meant for the road, effectively. And it goes really nicely with the door trims. And it's a complete unique seat from Sparco. Don't know much more about it than that, but equally. That is all your seat trims, ladies and gentlemen. So now you know the order everything went in. Now we're going to switch to interior trim colours. This is where you're going to have to bear with me. Well, we're going to begin in September 1998 again. So we're going to go through a timeline here. So from the beginning, every CL, Zetec, all came with the midnight black interior. Now, the midnight black interior, as you're going to see in this picture, it is pretty black, but it's not, is it? Those of us who know what these interiors look like would say that majority of the time they look like an extremely dark grey. So midnight black for me is not black. It's actually an extremely dark grey. But that's the title of it. And midnight black remained on every CL and Zetec regardless of seat facings and exterior colour throughout production. There we go. How nice and simple is that? Blimey neck. We got rid of all that. Yeah. So your Harlequin trim, your Swift, the finesse trim that you get on the CL, the match trim, the intro, they all came with midnight black interiors, as you'd have seen in some of the pictures that I showed you earlier. So now we're going to switch to the LX. Now from the start, the LX came with this interior trim colour. This colour is called medium graphite, and it is that early Mark 1 interior colour that is, well, put it this way, it's a light grey, isn't it? It's very much, you know, your grandpa wearing those light grey trousers. Very old school, but smart and very businesslike. And I consider that to be a very smart looking interior. Obviously, because it's an LX, we've got the sort of matte black console that the CL's got as well, the center console. But everything else is a light grey texture. And I think combined with the finesse trim, the purple finesse trim, that would have been a really nice combination. I have got a picture here of the seat facings and the back seats with that combination in medium graphite. And I really do think it's a good looking colour and it suits the car for its time. However, for some damn reason, the customers weren't buying it very often and it wasn't a very popular choice. And in fact, they would have done customer clinics to suggest what was popular and what wasn't, and clearly this wasn't. Medium graphite basically lasted for about 1.5 years, but you could get a medium graphite on the LX on every colour at this stage in September 98, okay? And then also we go to the Ghia with the Venice cloth seats, okay? On that, you would have had a choice of medium graphite, but with the medium graphite, as you're going to see here, it's a bit more of a two-tone effect. So it's not a completely medium graphite console. We've still got some black going on. So we've got the two-tone effect. So we've got the wooden, walnut trim on the inside, and you can actually clearly see the seat pattern on the Venice seats with the graphite. So you can clearly see that it is the match trim. It is what I know as the match trim on the later CLs. It's, what the hell? You give it that interior trim. I don't know. The side facings of the seats, by the way, I will say, is like a suede, whereas the match trim, the side facings were very cheap, put it that way. So that was the main difference. But you got the walnut trim surround console on the radio, and the graphite was mainly on the door cards, the seats, the centre console, but not the upper part of the dashboard. I think that is a very classy interior, and I'm still scratching my head as to why more people didn't take it up. I think that is a really nice interior combination. And then you would have got midnight black as well as a combination. So this is the other picture. So this is the midnight black version. Again, it's slightly darker and it's not as bright. The top of the dashboard is not black. It's, as I say, midnight grey. Midnight grey. I see, I got it right. Midnight black is a dark grey. That's how it looks in appearance, because it's much more lighter than the black on the two-tone graphite dashboard that we've just seen. Equally, the seats look quite nice. I do still think it looks just a bit plain Jane for a Ghia. And obviously, because it's the midnight black interior, you've got the black ash centre console and gear surround as well, with the trims on the doors. Now, there was a couple of exceptions to this, okay? So, on every Ghia with the Venice cloth seats, so we've got two trims. We've got the medium graphite interior with the two-tone and the midnight black that we've just seen. However, they weren't available on all the colours. If you had a Ghia with Venice seats in harvest gold or pepper red, you got this. So instead of medium graphite, you would have had medium parchment, okay? It was either a choice between medium parchment and midnight black on harvest gold and pepper red. Mainly because I suspect that medium graphite, that grey colour, doesn't go well with an exterior colour of hearing aid harvest gold and pepper red. It just doesn't look right, whereas midnight black goes with anything really. Midnight black was put on every colour at some point. And medium parchment, well, it's beige anyway, isn't it? So that's why they did that. And then if you ordered the Ghia with leather seats, those ruched leather seats, you could have basically medium graphite on every colour except harvest gold and pepper red. On those two colours, you could only get medium parchment. Yeah, okay, quite limiting there. There was no midnight black. Midnight black leather seats wasn't a thing at this point. It was only medium graphite or medium parchment. That's it. It remained that way until September 1999, where there was a couple of changes. Now remember, the LX medium graphite was available on every colour. Strangely, does that include the gold and pepper red? Because I actually checked that, and it is. So on the Ghia, you can't have medium graphite with those two colours, but on the LX you can. Very, very interesting, and I've double checked that information. There was definitely mistakes here and there in the grand scheme of things. But midnight black in September 99 was introduced on the LX models to partner medium graphite. So for the first time, you could buy an LX with a midnight black interior, except citrus gold, which replaced harvest gold, and pepper red. These were midnight black only. So you got a choice of medium graphite and midnight black on all the colours except those two, which you had to have a midnight black interior. Yeah, same logic again as always. And then it basically stayed again the same way, no changes. So I suspect by September 99, Ford were looking at the medium graphite interior and thinking, well, the customers obviously don't like it. They're not taking it up. We've introduced midnight black, and guess what? Midnight black on the LXs, it's a popular combination. So guess what we're going to do? Yeah, March 2000, medium graphite discontinued. Yeah, completely discontinued from both Ghia and LX models. So all the LX colours, basically you got midnight black. So from March 2000, CLs, LXs and ZTECs were all midnight black. The one unique thing about the early LXs is that medium graphite interior, and now it's just lost its uniqueness. And that's why I think getting an early LX is a really desirable thing if you have that medium graphite interior. Top tip there. March 2000, the only thing that really changed on both the cloth and the leather Ghia models, right? Medium parchment replaced medium graphite, okay? So medium parchment, that beige interior, was now available as an option alongside midnight black on all the colours except bright blue, diamond white, radiant red, oh, and moon dust silver. Yes, so 3 solid colours and 1 metallic colour. You could only get all these 3 colours on the Ghias in midnight black. Yeah, midnight black interiors for them 4 colours on the Ghia models. I mean, I don't know how many people would, again, have bought a Ghia with a solid colour. I touched on that in the last episode. It'd be very, very rare. But if you have a Ghia at this age with moon dust silver, you had to have midnight black. No choice of medium parchment. I mean, you're not going to have a beige interior with a silver exterior. I get that. So that's perfectly logical. And that basically, that's it. It remains unchanged until the facelift, when a few things changed again, which is where I'm going to try and simplify it again. So, October 2001, facelift just come out. What Ford did is, obviously, they dropped medium graphite in March 2000, and they replaced it entirely in both the LX and the Ghia with, well, midnight black for the LXs and medium parchment took over for the Ghia models. But Ford were very much, well, I think we need a colour that isn't midnight black, so it's not a dark grey, but we can't have one like medium graphite, which was too light. And I think that's what people were saying. It was too light a grey. It needed to be closer, but not quite as dark as midnight black as an alternative. So they came up with this. Medium dark graphite is the colour it's called. It was only available alongside midnight black on the LX models. Okay, so you could get it on every LX colour as an option alongside midnight black. So you had the choice of either of them, okay, whatever colour your LX has. It only lasted 12 months. This was discontinued a year later in September 2002, probably because the differences are so minute, it's untrue. I mean, looking at this picture, it's just so fractionally lighter. You wonder why they just didn't even bother. I think medium graphite was perfectly fine, that light grey interior. And you didn't need to make a medium dark graphite, which goes in between the two. It was completely and utterly pointless. So that's my interpretation there. It was just a complete flop. There are examples where this picture has actually come from an example found on Auto Trader recently. So if you have an LX between October 2001 and September 2002, you could have medium dark graphite as an interior. Good luck getting replacement bits because they'll be all off shades of everything. Because most of the parts will be midnight black, I can assure you. But anyway, in September 2002, things changed again. So medium dark graphite was completely discontinued. So you could only get, again, the LXs in midnight black and that remained the same for the rest of the LX's production life, all the way to the end with the CLs and ZTECs, just midnight black all the way. It was on the Ghias that things kind of changed a little bit. So in September 2002, medium dark graphite was completely discontinued. And medium parchment, by the way, was replaced by medium light stone. You're gonna have to bear with me on this one. Medium light stone and light stone. Right, I'll come back to that in a second. So on the LX models, medium dark graphite was replaced by medium light stone, okay? On every colour except the solid colours of Colorado Red and Blueprint. You could only get them as a midnight black interior on the LX models, okay? But every other colour, you had medium light stone, okay? On every colour alongside midnight black, okay? So medium light stone, that's an interesting colour combination on an LX. So you'd have got a medium light version of Martyr, okay, because it was the Martyr trim for the facelifted LX, okay, which is quite an interesting variation. Now, medium light stone, I'm going to tell you now, is an exact copy of medium parchment that it replaced, okay? So medium parchment actually continued to be produced as an interior colour into the facelift era, okay? It was only in September 2002, roundabout-ish, it was replaced into two different colours. Medium parchment and medium light stone are exactly the same style and tone of beige. Exactly the same. There's no difference. There's absolutely no difference. Where the difference is light stone, okay? So medium light stone was available on the Ghia Bussac trim. So remember, at this stage, we've got the Bussac seat facings on the facelifted Ghias, okay? You could only get the cloth Bussac Ghia interior in medium light stone, okay? That medium light stone was the name given to the colour on the cloth bussack facings. If you have a Ghia leather interior, the perforated leather, the colour was called light stone, okay? So before, on the Ghia models for medium parchment, it was you could have medium parchment on both the cloth and the leather, okay? Didn't matter, it's exactly the same. I'll tell you what, I'll show you this picture because it will show you actually the differences between the two. Now, on the left-hand side, you have the bussack seat material, okay, in medium light stone. On the right-hand side, you've got light stone, okay? Now, that is the leather option. There is a difference between the two. There is a subtle difference between the two. Light stone is fractionally lighter than medium light stone, so hence why there's a name difference there. That's really the only real change that was made. There were some key differences. So, as I say, on the Ghia cloth bussack models, I'm going to call it the bussack models, you got medium light stone as the colour, potentially if you didn't want midnight black. So you had two options, okay? So you had medium light stone, the beige interior, or midnight black, okay? So they were available on every single colour except the solid colours of red, Colorado red, and blueprint. They were only midnight black colours. So just like the LX, the Ghia was exactly the same. You cannot get medium light stone, the beige interior, with the exterior colours of Colorado red and blueprint. Now, obviously on the leather models, light stone, that was also available with midnight black. Midnight black was also the other option on all the colours, except, again, Colorado red, blueprint. They were only available with a black midnight interior. That's it. So I think I've made it as simple as possible for you to understand that one. There is only a couple of colours where they had to make a fraction of a change. And it remained unchanged until virtually the end of production. January 2004 was the last change they made to the interior trim, okay? By the way, if I haven't mentioned a change, it's because there was no change at all. That just for argument's sake. But in January 2004, that light stone colour, that was a unique colour to the leather Ghia models, that was deleted. So from January 2004, if you had a leather Ghia interior, you could only have a midnight black interior. Yeah. Regardless of colour, midnight black wins at the end of the day, cost cutting and all that. So it does appear to be that towards the end there was a lot of cost cutting, there was a lot of simplification. Midnight black, you know, just let's only have a couple of interior colours just to keep things nice and simple. It's as simple as that. I still think that the pre-facelift LX interior with medium graphite with those finesse seats is the best interior combination in terms of seat facing quality and the look of the interior. However, there's a lot to be said for medium parchment, medium light stone, whatever you want to call it, that beige interior, that two-tone dashboard, okay? There's a lot to be said for that interior, and they do look classy. It looks like there was a bit of Jag stuck in there, and remember Ford owned Jag at this time, so there was a lot of impetus there. So there you go, guys. This is the interior trim and the seat facing combos kind of debunked, really. It has taken an awful long time to get these images together, and with the help of David Harding, thank you David, who has compiled some of these images to help me produce this video. I think this is a video above anything else that I thought I would never be able to do, and it has taken a good week or so to get everything ready and to do something that, you know, a video that's going to be watched within about 30-40 minutes, or God knows how long this is. It takes far longer to prep for this kind of video. It is heavily scripted. I'm reading off my laptop as I speak, as you can tell, but I hope that you've enjoyed this episode and you've got a lot from it, and you've understood a lot more about the combinations available and what you couldn't get on your interior. I've learned quite a few things. Anyway, guys, look after yourselves. I will see you in another episode, Mark 1 or not. Take care.